Welcome in wherever you are, citywide, statewide, nationwide, worldwide. Welcome back to another episode of the Line to Gain show here on the Buffalo Rumblings Network. I am the big O, Jerry Ostroski, down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Sarah, why don't you let everybody in on where you are right now?
Yeah, I'm currently in an RV in the Finger Lakes in upstate New York. So
That's
definitely
dedication right there.
yeah. Yeah, definitely enjoying it. Gonna, hopefully get to roast some marshmallows and be one with I don't want to say one with the wildlife and everything because there's not really much around here. It's pretty they have, Wi-Fi, they have electrical, they have everything at
Right.
the campsite. So yeah.
Yeah, motorhomes are pretty sweet. Well, I don't know. You got a pull behind, or is it a full drivable motorhome?
No, well, it's a pull, but
Okay.
I mean, there's a bedroom, a separate bunk area. The whole couch thing folds down to another bed, so a huge bathroom. It's very nice. It's my sister's and her husband. It's a very nice motorhome. They upgraded last year, and I'm very jealous. It's even got a heater, or a fireplace. So
Really?
yeah,
Yo. Do they leave it
yeah.
there, or do they pull it all over the place?
No, they tend to go this year they didn't go to as many campsites as usual, but usually they do like, 5, 6, 7 different campsites during the summer.
Yeah, full disclosure, we had a motorhome for quite a while the boys were young. And then when they got older, they wanted no parts of rolling around in the motorhome.
Yeah.
So we got rid of it. But good times as always. It's cool. I mean,
Right.
it's you're basically pulling your house out to the wilderness somewhere. I mean, the way these things are, like you talked about. But hey, we got a lot to talk about today here on the show. As always, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. Help us out here on the Rumblings Network as we come to you every week. We're an hour early this week. We're kind of flexible in the off season. Preseason, we're just kind of, we go when we need to go. And obviously, once we get closer to game one, and by the way, something we'll talk about in a little bit, uh, the inaugural or first episode of the Jets Hard Knocks was on last night. We'll get into that here in a little bit. We got a lot to talk about. We'll start the show off, I'm sure, with the just released depth chart. Some other interesting news coming out of Western New York. There seems to be some amnesia all of a sudden about the price of the stadium. There's definitely some new news coming out of Orchard Park about that. I think they're about 3 months into the build, and there's already some controversy. But I think tonight we'll start with our depth chart. And if we lose Sarah, we will she'll be back, I'm sure, in a moment. But right here is the depth chart. And if you had an opportunity to check it out, um, over here in the comments, you can put up your thoughts on our depth chart. Sarah's trying to reboot her internet, so we'll go ahead and we'll shift gears a little bit, and we'll talk about last night's Hard Knocks show. Opening episode, Hard Knocks, HBO. I guess you call it the Max now. Even as a person that lived 10 years in the NFL, in training camps, being a part of it, I still find Hard Knocks to be incredibly fascinating. Um, I don't know if we'll get quite the player behind the scenes look this season. I don't know if we'll get the in the meeting room or the war room, so to speak, coaches meetings that we have in the past. I know the Jets were kind of anti really behind the scenes stuff as far as that stuff goes. Thought it was a little bit too personal, but we did get a look last night. If you watched the show last week, and if you did watch the show last week, Pop was on, Jeremy Poplin, sports director for a local sports station here in Tulsa, the Blitz 1170. And Jeremy and I had a Twitter conversation about the episode last night. And basically, he I do have to go to this because it was pretty funny. Ralph Wilson Sr., poor Sarah, these Bears are tech savvy these days. But it was almost like a infomercial, or you expected Ron Popeil to jump out with the rotisserie cooker, or you know, it was almost like they're advertising a set of Cutco knives. It was very very infomercial like for Aaron Rodgers, and I was all about it. If it was an infomercial for knives, I put my credit card number in. I bought as much as possible. I was down. I even got the free steak knives because I thought it was great. And honestly, and Sarah's back with us. She's going to join us with audio only. I think
Yeah,
that'll probably
that's
work.
probably the best bet. Y'all can't see my face today.
Yeah, but if you do follow Sarah on Twitter, she'd be putting them thirst trap photos up all the time. So
Oh, damn, Jerry. Ah, wow, that was definitely not a thirst trap. It was my birthday photo from like
it was very
a month
nice.
ago. Well,
It was
thank you
very
very
nice.
much. It's thirst trap.
I
Wow.
have to say the perm and the big hoop earrings remind me of my cousins. All
Yeah.
my cousins were Italian. It was like I was hanging out with my cousins again. But no, I kid. But anyway, we are talking about Hard Knocks last night, Sarah. I don't know if you had a chance to
Yes.
watch it. Pop and I were
Boring.
talking. I thought it was good. I liked it.
I thought it was boring. They're not gonna give us anything. They're really not gonna give us, like, because I think they're doing it, like begrudgingly. They don't want to do the show, so like I feel like they're not giving us anything. It's
Well, we're
I don't
not
know.
going to get the juicy behind the scenes stuff. Obviously, we're not going to get them really talking about players. I don't believe. I don't think we'll get the in depth, really the true thoughts of the coaches on certain players. Obviously, they're setting the kid up last night. The middle linebacker who had the interception in the game. A former, yeah, I put that up by the way earlier.
That's
That's great.
hilarious.
Obviously, the former quarterback that's got a lot of speed. They're gonna probably spotlight him. He might be the 52nd, 53rd, or 54th guy this year that who's that last cut, who's the last guy to make it. But like Pop said on Twitter, it was basically an infomercial for Rodgers, and they were basically washing his reputation clean almost. It was like they were bringing him out, reintroducing Aaron Rodgers to the world. I was down for it, man. I loved it. I thought it was great. Your thoughts?
I feel like when you go from watching the way Detroit was last year, I feel like it's very different already. Maybe I'll like it more as it gets going. But right now I just feel like, I feel like they're doing it to, appease everybody, and I feel, Rogers is, I don't know, it almost feels like really scripted. Like I was bored. Hopefully it gets better.
I think it will. But you know me. I mean, we've talked about this many, many times. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. I did notice one thing probably right off the bat that offensive practice was completely different. It seemed much more organized. It seemed much more upbeat. It seemed much more you're not trying to break your neck to get a rookie quarterback who was probably a reach to begin with to play at a high level or start week one. I mean, we all, will say what you want about Wilson. He wasn't a second overall pick. But when you watch him and you see what he's doing, he has a lot of the same skill set that Aaron has. They both are mobile. I think they both can throw the ball well. Obviously, Wilson trying to learn an offense. He's mimicking. They're talking about stuff behind the scenes. Um, I think I think the money that they paid for Aaron Rodgers is worth every penny because it's not just bringing in a guy that's a first ballot Hall of Famer that's won a Super Bowl, that's won MVPs, that brings instant credibility to your football team. But I also think that it brings in a mentor and almost a second quarterback coach, second offensive coordinator for this kid that they're trying to go ahead. They didn't give up on, and they're trying to go ahead and you know get him ready to play. But unlike a lot of people, and in our comments, they're saying is people, Bills fans right now are incredibly down on Rodgers. He's washed. He's this. I'm just telling you, folks. Don't. We're gonna find out week one real fast about this football team and what they're like because we play
Yeah.
tonight in New York. MetLife Stadium against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. So you say what you
Yeah.
will, but I'm just telling you, be ready for a football team that's going to
I
be really
have yeah, and when I look at the Jets, I feel like they have the pieces. I think we said last year they were pretty much a quarterback away. Their defense scares me more than anything.
yeah,
And I think that Rodgers gives them, credibility right from the beginning. We all know Garrett Wilson's going to be a great receiver. He proved it last year. When Brees Hall gets better, we know he's going to be a really good running back. He proved it in his first couple of games last season as well. Obviously, you don't know if he would have maintained that, but I'm pretty confident he's going to be as expected. And
right,
um, I think that they're going to be a good team. I kind of have them like, neck and neck with Miami. I still have them behind the Bills. I actually have them 2 games behind the Bills at the end of the season. Um the more I've watched the Dolphins camp, the more I will literally pray for Tua because their offensive line is their weak point down in
right.
Miami. It is so bad.
And
So
just kind of piggyback real quick on that, then I'll let you go. I think that's the weakness of the Jets as well.
yeah.
I think their offensive line is not at the caliber it needs to be. They had some problems today with some scrimmages and some practicing with the Panthers. The Panthers got after Rodgers pretty good today. I think that's their weakness as well. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I just think that at this point in time, what's kind of crazy is I think that it's the Bills' weakest, you know, position as well.
Right,
So it's going to be what offensive line comes out this season and actually,
right,
performs better than expected. Because I don't think any of them are expected to perform that well. But it's going to be the team that actually comes out, the offensive line that comes out and performs better than anyone really expected them to. Um, so, so between the Jets and the Dolphins, I think that they both have pieces that they need to succeed. I just don't feel like they've done enough to unseed where we are, as meaning the Bills. I feel like the Bills have still gotten better. And if I think we beat the second place team out by what, 4 games last year?
right.
So I just feel like, yes, they got a little bit better, but I don't think that they got that much incrementally better than we did. So
Well, exactly,
go
but
ahead.
here's the thing that makes me nervous, and this is I, I'm I'm not just giving my opinion. I'm also trying to set our fans up, trying to set Bills Mafia up
Right.
for kind of how to look at this season. Today, I was listening to a sports radio show between cases going from one facility to another, and the guest that they had on said, as predicted, the 4 hardest schedules in the NFL this year all belong to every AFC East
AFC
team.
East. Yep.
The 4 hardest schedules. So Patriots, Jets, Bills, Dolphins got the 4 hardest schedules in the league. Then you turn around and can arguably, and I've been saying it for weeks, you can arguably say that the AFC East is the best division in football this year. And I think why they're saying these schedules are the hardest is because we cross over with the NFC East this year, which is an incredibly tough division. Which you could say probably, you could argue say maybe even the NFC East is the best division of football. I still hang my hat on the AFC East with the addition of Rodgers to the Jets. But this isn't going to be one of these really pretty seasons. This isn't one of those seasons where we go out, we go 14-3 or 13 or 14-3 or 13-4, and we're just running. It's not going to be a pretty season. This season's going to be a war of attrition. Out of 17 games, we've got 6 games against interdivision rivals that are very, very good, and then another 4. So 10 of our games are against some of the top teams in the league.
Right.
So I don't think we need to be worried so much this year about what is our record. We need to be more worried about, do we get into the playoffs and do we have an opportunity maybe to rest week one? With
Right.
our schedule being the way it is, I think it's going to be hard to get that week one, that week,
Well, I
first
mean,
week of the
to
playoffs
get the
off.
week one, yeah, to get the week one bye, you have to, yeah, I mean, you have to win
Right.
the AFC. So that's, I don't think that that's going to be as easy as anyone would imagine. We all know how hard our schedule is this year. I think the way I look at it is last year, yes, we didn't have the toughest schedule, but we still had a tough schedule. And we ended up 13-3 through all the adversity and everything else that happened. Um, the way I want to look at it though is then we went into the playoffs and, we had a great first game. Then, well, I shouldn't say great. We had some struggles in that game, but then we ended up looking flat and like we had no business being in the second game against Cincinnati. So I don't mind if we come out this year and we finish 12-5, 11-6. I do think we need to win the AFC East. I can't say
No, I
that.
agree with that. I think I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But I
So
could
I
see
think
two
that,
teams going through.
yeah, I wouldn't mind being 11-6 or 12-5. If it means that we're tested enough that going into the
Right.
playoffs, we know what team we are and we know what we need to do to win. And they still have the passion to do it because, I think we've all said it. The game against Cincinnati, none of them looked like they wanted to be there.
Right.
It was so weird. It was such a weird
Yes.
experience. But being there in the stands, I felt it. I was that like the fans even had everything, like blown out of them. It was just like an out of body weird experience. So as long as we fight through this season, I like being, a little bit of the underdog. I feel like the team plays better that way. I feel like they play better with a grudge on their, on their shoulders. And I think the biggest thing, and Lewis just put it, whatever team was going to win the AFC East is going to be the team that remains healthy.
This is the one thing that I wish, as much as I love Sean McDermott and I like McDermott a lot, it's the one thing that I wish he was had a little bit different in his DNA, his makeup. And now, granted, I haven't been in meeting rooms, and maybe this is why he took over the defense. Maybe this is part of the grand plan. But I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to continue to do it until I see something different. Um, I really, really worry about how hardened this team is. I really, really worry about its overall, just its toughness levels and things like that. I'm not saying they're not tough, but it takes a gritty ass team to grind a schedule like they have this year.
Right.
And then that because I all I can think about is the last piece of work we saw, right, which was that Cincinnati game. And I saw a team that wasn't ready to play. I saw a team that kind of laid down and let Cincinnati just beat them to death. And that's the one thing that concerns me. And as we talk about that, we transition. And I know, Sarah, not a big deal. I'm glad you're on with however you got on. I'm happy you're back with us. And again, if hit the like button, subscribe button. We'll be here weekly on Wednesday nights on the Rumblings Network line to gain. But Sarah, I'm going to read off the depth chart, and we're going to
Oh,
start with
I
that.
can still I can still share it. Let me
Oh, you
give me
can?
one.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's
Pop
see
up the
here.
depth chart.
There we go.
Okay. So there's your depth chart, which was released by the Bills this week. And there's some things on here that I'm happy about, and there's some things on here that are a little bit unsettling for me.
Right.
The very
I
first
put,
thing,
if you see, I have a couple of things highlighted because there were certain things that kind of surprised me, and I'm sure we'll both pick up on the same exact things. But then I also kind of started doing some numbers down at the bottom. Um, it's I kind of did a quick little scan and I got 55 with Vaughn. So we're going to have to, cut two people that are going to be, surprise cuts in some way or another because when you talk to half of Bill's Mafia, this person's a definite, this person's a definite, and this person's a definite. One of those definites, actually two of those definites with if you consider Vaughn too, when he comes back from the pup list, there's going to be two people that are gone that people are going to be surprised about.
Well, let me say this, and I think that Von Miller can start if they start Von Miller on the physical. If they start him on the pup list, how many games until he can come back?
4 weeks.
I would do that. I would start him on the pup list. I would
Yeah,
not
I
start the
agree.
season with him.
Um, our hardest part of the schedule is the second half of the year.
Right,
I think that keeping him off the first four also gives one of the other edge guys, preferably, probably I would say Boogie, and AJ, AJ Espinosa. AJ would probably start, if Von was out, but between Boogie and Shaq, you're going to give them an opportunity to kind of duke it out a little bit, and see which one's going to get, playing time down the
right.
road, and whether or not one's going to get traded or one is going to, get released when Von comes back.
Well, granted, we're not in meetings. We're not in personnel
Right.
meetings. But if you read between the lines, you watch interviews, you watch the stories being written. Um, AJ Epinesa has been mentioned multiple times by Sean McDermott as having an incredibly good camp. Is coming back much stronger than he was when he left. Has being a player that has worked on his trade and is really, really having a good preseason to date. That tells me a lot. If you got a guy like that is performing that well, and granted, Von Miller's an NFL Hall of Famer, okay? So you're
Right.
never going to fill those shoes. But if you can go ahead and rest him another 4 weeks, which is what I would do, and play Epinesa, then you have a swing guy. Say you've got Boogie Basham, you've also got Greg Rousseau. I still think Ed Oliver can play outside and run downs in a pinch. So you've got guys that can fill in.
Right.
Why rush him back? So what does that also do for you, Sarah? It gives you an extra spot, right? It gives you a chance to keep somebody around to see how things go. But I want to ask you a question. I saw a comment you made that because you felt that Osiris Torrance wasn't starting, that was going to force the Bills to keep 11 offensive linemen. What was your reasoning behind that comment?
Yeah, I still feel, and I kind of still feel that way. Because if Ryan Bates is starting at right guard, then it looks like we'll probably have to keep Greg, Mance, which from what I've been hearing, his camp has not been as good as, Bates has at center. So, as reserve center. So it kind of surprised me that they would start, Bates at right guard. But again, and RJ just put it up here, that the depth chart it's the first one released. It is 1000% not going to be anywhere close to what the final depth chart is. We are not looking into it that deeply. It's
Right.
just something fun to talk about because it also gives us, and people that haven't been able to follow camp as much, a little bit of an insight of, where people are. Because if you look, seeing Puna Ford as pretty much third string at this point was really, really surprising to me. I was not, as impressed with Tim Settle towards the end of the year last year. And I kind of felt like, Settle would be the person that, was pretty much the fifth defensive tackle coming in, because he could rotate between, the three tech and the one tech. So I was actually kind of surprised that, Settle was before Ford, but
Let me
it's not a
let's
big
go
deal.
back to the offensive line
Yep.
situation about 11. They won't keep 11. They're going to keep 10, whether Bates starts at guard or not. And this is what I think you kind of have to look at, okay, and what they're looking at doing. If they have a guy, if Mance is a guy that can be on the practice squad, okay, or if Alex Anderson, a young guy, comes up and beats Mance out, and since he's young, he can be on the practice squad. You have three centers on that. You've got three guys that have started at center on that starting offensive line for the Bills. You've got McGovern, you've got Mitch Morris, obviously, and you got Bates. So you go ahead and you got Bates as your backup. If Morris was to get hurt, you move Bates, you put Osiris Torrance in, and you can get through a game, right? Then after that, if Morris is out for an extended period of time, you start Bates, you have Torrance as your starter, and if you have to bring that practice squad guy up, because you don't want to mess with McGovern or give McGovern reps. You bring that practice squad guy up at that point with the intentions of once Morris gets healthy, you slide him back down. You know what I mean? So I think that they'll keep 10. Um, I'm I don't this does not shock me. I think Bates is a good player. I really do. I think Osiris Torrance is learning. I mean, he hasn't played guard. He's been a tackle. Now he's playing guard in the NFL. There's a lot to learn, right? You got to learn a playbook. You've got to learn a lot of things. And until he can prove to that coaching staff that he knows that playbook and he's a reliable player, they're not going to put Josh Allen in harm's way just because he's a big guy they took in the second round.
Right.
They're going to keep that veteran group up there. I still think this is probably the biggest question mark on the football team. I think defensively, Sarah, what they run defensive scheme wise, and granted, we haven't seen McDermott in a while, but knowing what he does, watching what he's done in the past in Philadelphia and also in Carolina, I think these defensive linemen are interchangeable. Your aggression is going to come from your linebackers and some of your safeties. They can run stunts up front. They've got very mobile defensive linemen. Again, with Epinesa having a great camp, let Vaughn rest, let him keep healing. But that offensive line group, I think everybody that's the target for everybody, because if you remember last week when Spencer Brown seemed to have had a back spasm, or it was what do I want to say? Best guess was it was a back issue.
Yeah,
Could have been
during it they thought that he re-aggravated his injury, but an hour later he was seen being just fine. So that's when,
could have been
trying,
general. It could have been general cramps, right? We don't
yeah.
know, but that
Just
group is
to
delicate.
yeah, just to kind of go through some of these, questions that that people are putting up here. So someone asked how's Shane Ray playing? I haven't seen much of him. I went to camp on Sunday. I'm going again for tomorrow. I haven't heard much. And right now, I think that it would be a very uphill battle to have him make the 53. Um, Roy Collins, I am very disappointed in you for doing my math for me. Uh, he said 55 with Vaughn. How many tight ends? And I just went through and realized that I did this so fast. I did not include tight ends, so I would be at 58 with because I think they're going to keep 3 tight ends. So
I do
um
too.
yeah, so we would be at 58. So that's 5 people on this squad that on the depth chart that I think we would be keeping, that or I shouldn't say I think we'd be keeping, that people think that we're going to be keeping, but it's just going to be impossible. um so earlier in the off season I had said 9 offensive linemen, maybe 10. So we'll see how they, switch that up a little bit. But um, I've definitely been hearing that they might keep 6, including Vaughn, on the edge, which is kind of crazy to me. But people weren't thinking about Leonard Floyd coming on until they signed him. So uh,
Russo's
definitely
going to
gonna.
be Russo's going to be your swing man.
You
I
think
think
Russo's gonna be swing?
if they keep 6 edges, I think Russo can go inside on third down, and they're trying to create some athletic mismatches. If you're
Right.
keeping 6 edge guys, I can see Russo going down and playing on a guard and a 3 technique, and trying to use his height and size and get some mismatches that way,
Yeah. Well, they
clog up
did
some passing lanes.
at camp one day. They actually did move him inside for a play or two, so which was intriguing. I hope that they have that defense all over the freaking field and nothing makes sense.
Right.
um because the more they do that, the more it's going to confuse the offense of what they're trying to do. So yeah, so thank you, Roy, for making my math wrong.
You
But
you talked about Puna being third team, and that surprised you. That, to me, looking in a crystal ball, probably tells me that he probably didn't come into camp as in good a shape as he should have.
well, And Puna is a little bit like Tim, where he's played both one tech and three tech. So
Right.
maybe they're looking at who can switch it up, but they also want we've been talking about, they want to be faster. Um, so maybe they're just breaking him in a little bit. He's a hefty man. He's definitely
Yes.
he's a big boy.
He is a
So
true blue inside run stuffer.
so is Jordan Phillips. Jordan's a
Yes.
big dude. But yeah, so what was the other one I want to see? Oh, and Ralph Wilson asked, has Ike taken any reps at center? I have actually not seen him taken any reps at center. Everything that I've watched, someone else can kind of chime in. I have really only heard between Morris and Bates kind of switching those between those duties, but and then obviously Manson and Anderson, but they're obviously supposed to be taking reps at center.
And they're probably not snapping to Josh Allen either.
No, and that was, you saw. I don't know if anyone's went to the red and blue game. It was a little scary with how many bad mishandles there were with Kyle Allen and the center. So usually at that point it was either Bates or Mance, Anderson on a couple as well.
The thing when we look at this depth chart, and as stated earlier, it's early. Um, things will change. There is one thing that I don't know if I want to say shocking, but there's one thing that's really eye opening to me. And I'm sure that Bill's Mafia loves it as well if they've picked up on it. But it is interesting to me that the public enemy number one, our proclaimed number two receiver, his backup is a raw, untested rookie.
Oh yeah, and
And
I don't think it's gonna kind of I don't think it's going to shake out that way. I think that they're just kind of putting that like this in the depth chart. I think it'll be Shakir that'll kind of, be on one side of the or the other. Um right now Shearfield is kind of Diggs's backup, but I feel like that was Shakir last year. So
right,
I think that it doesn't really matter for the wide receivers how this how this really shakes out. Hardy, I do believe, will be the slot, and I actually kind of think that we'll be lining up Kincaid in the slot as well a lot. But I do think we're going to keep 7 wide receivers now. I I am, maybe I'm making a surprise little take here. But Andy Isabella, he looked really good on Sunday. And granted, I only saw one day of camp, um, but he looked really good. And it was a camp day with no pads or anything like that. So don't read too much into that. But he can also return kicks and punts. So I think that there is a good discussion there of why we would keep 7 and include him. I think that it'll be interesting to see, but Shorter, they're not going to cut him, but he is definitely not going to see the field much of anything his rookie year. So, I see that he's the second depth, but I don't see that happening. But the one thing I do want to say, because you said public enemy number one, Gabe Davis is having a terrific camp. He is having an absolutely terrific camp. I am not going to jump. Everyone is on the bandwagon saying extend him now, extend him now. I'm not going to jump because my biggest thing is I want to see the consistency during the season. But he has had a terrific camp.
the one that's been intriguing to me with everything I've seen, and I'm ready for a preseason game, and obviously we probably won't get Josh week one. We'll have Allen, we'll have Barkley, but I'm just here to tell you everything I've seen on film and every clip I've seen of Dalton Kincaid. My goodness,
Yeah.
I don't know how what being up there at camp and seeing him in person, Sarah. What's his size like, especially compared to Knox? Are they very similar?
No.
What's he like? What's he like to Knox?
Kincaid looks like, to me, he looks like a little bit of a big body receiver, but
Yeah.
he is 1000%. He looks like a receiver. He kind of reminds me of Jimmy Graham. When when you see him, he
Right.
can definitely um he's smaller than shorter than Justin Shorter. Like, like to me, when you look at them to
Right.
side by side. So I personally think that it's going to be very intriguing to see how we use Knox and Kincaid. Together, not together. I think that they are very different tight ends. Kincaid and Knox actually today, I think it was, or might have been yesterday, was talking about Kincaid a lot. He said the way he breaks down a defense is not rookie like at
Mm-mm.
all. He can go out there, he can see what's happening, and he's just, between his feet and his hands, I am just super impressed. Everything that I've seen so far, again, we haven't seen it, him playing in a game. There's still going to be learning curves. He's still learning the offense. So I still think Knox is going to be out there, as tight end one. But I think that Kincaid's going to be 1B slash wide receiver three. I really honestly think that we will have him out there more probably, in the slot than people are,
Well,
kind of imagining yet.
the thing that has me excited is the red zone possibilities. We obviously we kind of got stale in the red zone.
We did.
We did not, and maybe if I want to be nice today and give Josh Allen some credit, maybe his terrible turnover ratio in the red zone was because we were stale in our plays. I don't know, but
I think he
with this
forced,
guy,
he put
right,
everything on his own back, and I think he forced a lot. And I think a little bit of it was, different play calls that we weren't quite used to, and that teamed up with him, trying to force things, led to a lot of those turnovers. So I think if we cut that out this year, imagine how much more we would have scored last year. And it came down to a couple of games where, you know, realistically we lost what our 3 games by combined, I think, 8 points.
right.
So when it comes, turnovers were our biggest problem.
As hot as the Miami game was, and now our soft society wants to put both teams on the same sideline because we can't put the visiting team on the sun and the home team
Oh,
in the
Jerry, I'm going to
shade.
tell you right now, we're going to
Um,
fight. We are going to
you
fight because
know,
I sat in that heat.
yeah. Well, you know what? We weren't bitching and moaning when we were putting people in 0-degree weather either. When I was at the AFC Championship game and
Oh,
Bruce
I was
when
definitely bitching
Bruce
and moaning
dribbled
because I had to sit in that too.
when Bruce dribbled Joe Montana's head off that cold turf like a basketball, nobody
I
was
think the
complaining that we didn't
difference,
heat the turf up,
right?
right?
I think the
I mean, it's
difference,
called home field advantage for a reason.
well, I disagree on the home field advantage part. I think everyone's got to deal with the cold. The difference is that when it's cold, it's cold. You don't really have a difference between what sideline is colder than the other. When it comes to it being hot, the Dolphins have literally said they designed the stadium specifically to put the visiting team in the sun. Now, for someone who goes to that stadium weekly for the Hurricanes games, I know how brutal that side of the field is.
It's
And
called a home field advantage for a
well,
reason.
yeah, and I mean, like, they're not going to change anything. I mean, we can all bitch and complain as much as we want. They're not going to change that,
But
Jerry.
here's the deal. The deal is if and the point I was getting to before I decided to uh, you
Get
know,
beat up by me.
well, you're not beating me up. You're not changing my mind on this one. Um with all the heat issues and all the Pedialyte and all the salt tablets and all the if the quarterback would have fumbled the ball inside the 5-yard line, we would have won the football game. But
Yeah,
that's
and
besides
if
the point.
Mackenzie would have caught the touchdown pass, like there was so many ands, ifs, and buts. Like, there was so many. We lost that game. The Dolphins did not win that game, and I'll stand by that a million times over.
Yeah,
Um,
my point
but
exactly.
yeah, but agreed. So if we can clean up those those turnovers this year, and I think we can, as Josh has healed up and everyone's getting a little bit more confident in what Dorsey's calling. And I think the other thing is what we have not spoke about yet is our running game. Um, I'll tell you, Cook had a couple of really good Again, no pads on Sunday, but he had a couple of really good openings that I was like, I actually recorded one and posted it. And it was like, the good news here is the hole that opened up that he hit was ridiculous. And
Are you talking about at Bill Stadium or was it training camp?
it was at training camp.
Okay, okay. Because
Yeah.
the one
And
that
then
the big run he had from his own end zone on the blue red game was actually a defensive misassignment, which is why he ran for about
well,
60.
and that's kind of what I said on Sunday. I said the positive news is the hole that opened up. This was great. The negative news was that Leonard Floyd kind of over pursued
Right.
and completely missed him, kind of, scoffed at him and
Well,
was pushed to the side, and that opened up the hole for Cook to go through. Today, Damian Harris had 2 or 3 really good runs, and I don't remember if it was him or if it was uh, and I don't think it was him. I think it was Latavius Murray today. Had like a 70-yard touchdown. Yeah, it was, because we were all joking. The 33-year-old, made everybody look silly.
right.
He had like a 70-yard touchdown today. So, I'm looking forward to seeing them again tomorrow with pads, because, it's a little bit of a different practice, obviously, when they have pads on. But I think that as much as we kind of complained about, needing whether or not we needed a running back, I think that, this running back by committee is going to really, excel. And between Cook and Harris, I think that they could both have 750 yards each. I think, everyone's joking about, Murray having 750 yards last year. I honestly think that, he's not going to go anywhere near that, but I think he's going to have a lot of touchdowns. We'll have him a lot more in the red zone, bullying his way into the end zone instead of
Well,
having Josh do it.
I personally think while it will be somewhat of a running back by committee, I want James Cook to get as much as possible. I
Yeah.
think the
And
guy's
and
too
I
good
still
out of
think he
backfield
will.
catching it. He's running out. He needs to be active. He needs to get his opportunities. I hopefully it morphs towards that, especially
Right.
with and I think you're right. You're dead on with Murray. I think he's going to be your power back, your short yardage back. Although I still believe the best short yardage runner we have on our team is our quarterback. But you know, this is a good group. It's made a little different than it was last year. A little more size and all that. You still got Reggie Gilliam if you need him. Um, Defensive wise, we talked about the defensive line. I think there's a lot of interchangeable parts there. I think you'll see some guys moving around. By the way, Leonard Floyd, I believe, is also the one that had the missed assignment on the big Cooks run down
Ooh.
there out of the end zone. Didn't adjust with motion, which is just trying to learn a new playbook. But what was your before we move on to something else here, the last little bit of the show? What was your opinion? Did you get much of a chance to really kind of look at the defensive secondary? What are your thoughts about the secondary and how they're kind of shaping up?
Yeah, I keep on going back and forth because first and foremost, I want to just say Taron Johnson, like, we are just, and I don't mind staying in nickel because of him. We are just really lucky to have him. He is just play after play after play, and his
Another guy that
attitude,
gets
I
a
just
lot of
love it.
criticism. Yeah, another guy that
Yeah.
gets a lot of criticism.
Yeah, I think he did.
He has a thankless job, by the way.
Right. Right.
Thankless.
Um I will say that I have been disappointed. I don't want to say disappointed in our coaching staff, but it's kind of that they haven't pushed a little bit more of just having Elam out there, kind of
Right.
making him go with the ones, to get him more prepared. I know that they're trying to have the best person out there. We've seen enough of Dane Jackson for me to believe he is not going to be CB2. And the fact that
Right.
we keep on splitting so many reps with the three of them, with Benford, Elam, and with Dane Jackson, I feel like it's a wasted opportunity to really get, either, pick or choose Elam or Benford. Get one of them more of the reps. Hopefully after they have this game on Saturday, we'll have a little bit more of a understanding of where they want to go with CB2. But I don't think Dane Jackson, and it's, after all these years, I just don't feel like, he's it. And I think that he is a terrific person to come in, sub out for a couple of plays. You don't lose much when he does come in. Um, but we picked, and I'm not saying we have to live and die by our first round pick, but Elam was terrific at the end of last year. If you look at, I think his last 5 or 6 games, he
Right.
was absolutely terrific. He just needed the reps. So I feel like, why are you taking them away from him, so early already? Get him out there so he can break himself
Let me
back
ask you this,
in.
Sarah. Let me ask you this because I have not had a chance to see, and obviously waiting on this first preseason game, coverage wise with the change in McDermott, are we seeing more press man single high? Are we seeing a lot of quarter? Have you had a feel for the coverages
Yeah,
that
he's
they're
definitely
running?
been
What
more
does he like to be
aggressive.
in?
Yeah, he's definitely been more aggressive. I've definitely seen a lot more, press man than we've ever seen before. I have not seen them do pretty much any type of like zone at all, which makes me happy. I hate when we're 10, 15 yards off the ball.
Right.
He's definitely been a lot more aggressive. And I'll admit some of that has caused our wide receivers to look great and our corners to look terrible. And
But
it's
that's
it's went a little
surprising
bit
to
by
me. Yeah, and the reason I ask you that is it's surprising to me is because Elam is a press man corner. And if they're playing more
yep.
press man, it would I would think anyway, you would see more of him, but
I
maybe
think
they've
it's
decided to
different
hang their hat
when
on Bedford.
we have had rap out there, as well. So when we end up having rap, White and Poyer out on the field all at the same time, and Taron Johnson, I feel like it's a little different. But most of the time when I saw that, it felt like it was more run options. So you don't really get to see what they would have been doing, because they're all see ball, uh you know hit ball, get ball
Right.
type thing. So that they're all running after the running back at that point. So I will be really interested tomorrow to see them with pads, to see if it changes up a little bit. You can only see so much without pads,
Now,
and then
granted,
obviously
they don't have a starter chosen at that position. It's a three-way
they definitely do
it's a
not
three-way
have.
go.
They've been
Right.
in and out multiple days. You can see that so like Elam started as CB2 the other day, but he ended up getting more reps as CB1. Sorry, as CB2, but with the first team. Um Even though he didn't start out there as CB2. So Benford had started out there, not Benford, Jackson had started out there that day with the first team, but by the end of the day, Elam had gotten more reps. But again, when when you're splitting it between the three, they're definitely not getting enough reps,
Right.
in my opinion. So,
And one more spot I want to ask you a question about before we move on to something else to end the show today. And by the way, hit the like button, subscribe button. We appreciate you joining in on the comments. Line the Gain always here on Buffalo Rumblings Network on Wednesdays, normally 9 Eastern. Today we went an hour early. Sara Larson, she's up in the Finger Lakes and she's hanging out with family and has busted her tail to be a part of the show. And that's big time. That's big time. I'm
yeah.
Jerry Ostrowski down here in Tulsa. But real quick, before we switch gears to our last topic, I'm not freaked out by this because if you watch the kid play in college, this was really kind of, I think, a position made for him. And so we're looking at Dorian Williams. Dorian is backing up Matt Milano at the will linebacker. And you got Bernard, and you've got Dotson. Both of those guys listed as the first team middle linebacker. They're in a heated battle. Give me
Yeah.
your thoughts on that and what you're seeing
Yeah.
out of that spot.
I thought Dotson kind of started to run away with it, but Bernard's kind of the last couple of days kind of creeped up there a little bit. I kind of felt like they were gonna just, you know, kind of just give it to Dotson. He had I would say the first 5 or 6 days of camp. I feel like he kind of ran away with it. But Bernard's picking up. I think Spector is definitely out of the conversation. Not saying he's out off the team or he's not going to be on the 53. I obviously think he'll still make the 53. But he's definitely not in that conversation of who's going to start. But we've all kind of talked about it. And John Robert put it in the comments. Taylor Rapp being out there and having us go into dime. I think that it'll be we're going to see a lot of different defenses this year. I think schemes with McDermott. He's made a lot of comments about being more aggressive, being faster, getting to the ball quicker. So I think that they're kind of for that middle linebacker position. They're just looking for someone who is processing what is going, what the offense is giving them out there. And like I said, Dotson was the person who seem to be grasping that the most. But Bernard, lately, the more that they've had their meetings, I guess Bernard has, kind of done well with film and kind of diagnosing what's going on. So they've been pretty impressed with, some of the things he said.
I want to talk about what Roy Collins posted. He said in the past, Dotson's coverage ability has not been as good with the kind of indifferent face or sad face, whatever you want to call it. This is a different defense, guys. You're not playing a steady diet of two high safeties. If you were playing a defense with a ton of two high safeties, like Frazier played, a bend but don't break type thing,
Right.
with a lot of Tampa 2, you needed that huge middle linebacker to be dropping deep into the zone, which is what I think Edmonds was good at. He was good at running stuff down and dragging guys down.
Yep.
He was good at dropping deep into coverage. Was he a guy that was a blitzer? No. Was he a plugger? No. Was he a stick your face in there? No. That's not what he did. That wasn't his strength. So to kind of, to use an elegant phrase, before we poo-poo on the linebacker guys that we have, understand that position and its responsibilities have changed drastically from the last defensive coordinator to who we have now. That skill set's not the same. You don't need to have the skill set of Tremaine Edmonds to run that defense, which is why the Bills didn't even make an offer for him. They knew they wanted him to go. They weren't going to keep him around.
I agree.
Because he didn't fit what was going on. So you're going to see these linebackers coming downhill. I think you're going to be excited when you see the type of blitzing that this defense will do, the way they get after offenses. It will be a much more aggressive defense. Now, with that, what's going to happen? You will probably give up a big play every now and then.
Yep.
It's okay, but I think, Sarah, you and I have talked about this at length, to sit back and win most of your games, but then you're so conservative you can't win the important game, that doesn't do anything. If we have that much faith in Josh Allen and what this offense can do, they should be able to make up if we give up one or two here and there on the defensive side. So that's the way I look at it. I think that linebacker group will be good. I'm looking forward to what they bring. But real good analysis of the depth chart. Again, we know it's early. Still waiting for the first preseason game. Obviously, probably will not see Josh Allen and most of the stars that game. But
Correct.
There is something I want to end with before we go any further. And this just broke tonight on ESPN. And it says reports, Bills Stadium projected to have a $300 million cost overrun. Okay.
Yep.
So with the initial estimated cost of $1.4 billion in March of 2022 and increased to $1.54 billion months later, it is now projected to have jumped to $1.65 billion and approaching $1.7 billion. Okay.
Yep.
Now, with that being said, it's notable because the Bills, the franchise, the Pagulas, are contractually obligated and required to cover any overruns beyond the then agreed to cost of $1.4 billion. So basically saying this, anything above that 1.4, it's coming out of Pagula's pocket. They got to pay for it. They are claiming. Go ahead.
I was going to say, which I want to kind of reiterate a little bit because, granted, I shouldn't say much because I don't live in Erie County. I don't live in New York anymore. So I'm not, it is not coming out of my taxpayer money, but a lot of people had a lot of, issues with, coming out of taxpayer money and stuff. Anything that is going to be this overage is not going to be coming from New York State. It is all from the Pagulas. And they
Right.
knew that, going into the contract talks, the delay. I mentioned to you, Jerry, that maybe this was a little bit of why,
Right.
I can't even say his name. Ron Rakuya is out. Um, but yeah, I mean, the delays led to, some really bad math.
So basically, the Athletic reported on the cost overruns last weekend and cited unidentified individuals as projecting the stadium's price tag potentially reaching $1.9 billion.
Nine.
Newly appointed Bill COO John Roth called the projections premature and speculative at best. Okay, here's what this is what this come down to. You know me, I look at these things. I'm not an expert. I say it all the time. If you want your kid to learn how to pass pro or run block, give me a call. If you want them to learn how to do algebra 2, don't call me. Okay, that's not what I do. I don't do quotes for building materials. I don't do quotes for contracting. Okay, that's not what I do. But what I do is I call up my friends that are in this line of business and that sell products and sell things that are used to build $1 billion stadiums. Okay, and I asked him. I sent him the article. I said, comment on this. Tell me what you think. And the first thing he said was, well, steel is down, copper's down, cement's down, brass is down, and PVC is down. So coming out and saying that materials are actually rising to where this projected cost is so blown up and elevated, he claims it's the opposite. Okay, that material costs are actually softening right now, and the reason why is because with interest rates going up, right?
Right.
Nobody wants to build, so if you have all this material laying around, you can't sell it at a high price. You got to sell it at a lower price. Um, Labor shortages have been an issue for over 3 years, so this is nothing new. So I said, okay, man. I said, what do you bring this down to? What is this? When you look at this, what is your prediction on what is happening? He said it comes down to one word and word only, and I tend to believe this. He said politics. How do you get a brand new stadium passed in a community that is not huge, that is, that a state's going to have to, get a tax hike passed through? Well, you probably go ahead and give a softer estimate on what the cost is, and then when the actual cost comes out, we'll then get together and put our heads together and figure out how to pay for it. Obviously, it's not going to come out of more taxpayer money. I don't think that would fly. They would never pass that. But I think there's just a lot of politics and a lot of posturing,
Right.
especially with some of the verbiage that's coming out about, like,
But it would,
you
yeah,
know,
I was gonna say it would make me think that the Pagulas would have known that they were, kind of making the price look a little less if they knew that they were gonna have to pocket, like they were gonna have to come out of pocket for it, just to get the county and the state to approve, what they could. In the end, they're the ones out the money. So I just hope that this doesn't cause additional delays, and getting the stadium open.
well, I don't think it'll cause delays in the stadium getting open, but I do think that it's going to cause something. I mean,
Yeah.
whether this, if it is actually coming out of the Pagula's pocket, and this is something, does it force them? And I'm just speculating. I'm just talking out loud. This is what we do on the
Right.
show. But does it force them to have to sell the Sabres to make up that money? Quite honestly, I would, me anyway. I mean, I would do everything I can to make the Bills franchise the most profitable thing I could make,
Right.
considering the values of it. I mean, I get what I
I have a
get it. You know,
Yeah. I was gonna say I have a feeling the PSLs will end up coming in a little bit higher than anyone projected if they have to come out of pocket 300, million dollars. So
right, right.
yeah,
And then
it's
you
gonna
got
affect us
people.
all.
And for instance, you got it says another person said a delay in sending out bids also had an effect in upping the cost. Are you kidding me? I mean,
Yeah.
I call total BS on that, because you're not going to receive bids back in time for the largest construction project in northern New York has seen in probably over 20 years.
Right.
That's not, no. So anyway, I
All
thought that was
right.
interesting.
Yep, yep. So everyone, don't forget Hump Day's on after us. So tune into that.
Is that why I
And
got the eye rolls emoji?
oh, did you? I'm not even on that page. Someone's complaining. Who's complaining?
Yeah.
Spencer
Who do
Joe.
you
Oh,
think?
all right.
All right,
We're
folks.
40 seconds over. All
All right,
right.
we're out.
So tune in for that, and then tomorrow night we have a Mafia cast.
All right, guys. One love. Go
Uh,
Bills.
all right. Go Bills.